Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to Sippin' My Tea. Hope you all have had, I'll say, a peaceful weekend. I know that the struggle is real, and that's what we're here to talk about today. I started, first of all, I'm sipping my tea today in my new Starbucks HU mug. Isn't that amazing? Thank you, Dr. Keith Curry from Compton Community College, for sharing the mug with me. That's amazing. Today, I thought it was appropriate to sip on some freedom. This is my amazing spearmint orange spice tea, named for Arminta Ross, more commonly known throughout history as Harriet Tubman. So thank you to the Tea Book in the 2nd Supervisorial District in Culver City specifically for this amazing series and one of my favorite teas. I felt I needed to drink some freedom today, if you get my drift. So I started my day today at an anti-ICE raid rally, joining with my elected colleagues, Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager-Dove, and the Culver City Council, the mayor and city council members and other elected leaders there, Tristan Elzador on the president of the school board, to talk about Mr. Lozano, Enrique Lozano, who has sold polentas, as I learned today, in Culver City for decades. I spoke to young people who have known him their entire lives. The mayor talked about knowing him the entire time he's lived in Culver City. A sidewalk vendor who in our district was taken, we assumed by ICE initially, taken without a warrant. We learned today at the rally that he's been transferred to Texas. I had the pleasure of meeting his niece and his wife, whose hearts were warmed by the fact that all of their neighbors showed up for them. Those events are difficult for me because I always struggle with after the rally, what do we do? We talked about making sure people understand the red cards, making sure people know their rights. And I, really challenged us all to kind of have a plan in your own mind, through our racial justice learning exchange, monthly gatherings we do in the 2nd District. We had a bystander training over a year ago, conducted by LA versus Hate, that if you see a hate crime taking place, to really be trained, and not so much trained, but to even think through for yourself what your plan of action would be, because what we are seeing in these videos is so deeply shocking. The lack of due process, frankly, the blatant racism, the masked men with no visible signs of the law enforcement organization they purportedly work for, being present is so shocking. I just think that people need to kind of think through what their plan would be, and hoping that everyone knows their rights, has the cards. And so we're prepared until such time we as a city are free from the abuse, frankly, that my immigrant brothers and sisters, but all of us are subjected to with this police state that the federal government has leashed upon us. It's shocking and disappointing. And with that, I wanted to really spend some time, again, talking today about how we know our rights, but also in solidarity as we really fight collectively to end these attacks on immigrant communities. I've known these two sisters, we were talking about it for quite some time. We measure it by the age of our children, literally both of us. And so I'm deeply honored today to be joined by two phenomenal leaders who are leading organizations on the front lines. First of all, Nana Gyamfi, who's the executive director of BAJI. BAJI is the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. Hello.
Hello, glad to be here. Got my tea. I'm sipping.
What are you sipping?
I'm sipping a tea that was actually made by my comms director to fill me with power and peace. So it has some peppermint, but it also has some lemon balm, trying to keep us in the zone we need to be in. But this is a struggle, honey. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So I got to keep
it is a marathon that I didn't know that I was running in. It's one thing to choose to sign up for a marathon. It's another thing to be thrust into a marathon. And joining us in this marathon is my sister friend, Manju Kulkarni, Executive Director of AAPI Equity Alliance.
Hi, Supervisor. How are you? Hi,
I'm
Nana. So good to join both of you.
like you, we're in a marathon and didn't know we were. Tell me what you're
Exactly.
drinking.
So I needed something strong today, and it's non-alcoholic though, but it's Thai iced tea. So it's got all the great stuff, which is a lot of caffeine, but also condensed milk, which is so tasty. So it's one of my favorite summertime treats because you just have it over ice. It gives you energy. It's like a little dessert like a liquid dessert.
I love Thai iced tea. And I don't know if you all know the history of sipping my tea. Is I'm a tea drinker. I don't drink coffee, and so the throwing shade. I'm just gonna sip my tea. So it's a funny kind of double thing. But I always ask people to share the tea they're drinking. So thank you, both of you. That was the teas you were drinking, and my freedom tea. I think are indicative of what we're facing today, without question. Manju, you mentioned the fact that it's got milk in it. This morning, I happened upon a CBS special report episode that was talking about immigration, and it was tracking the dairy industry and dairy farmers and the role immigrants play in that industry through the whole supply chain. I learned today that 46% of truck drivers in California are immigrants.
Yeah.
It was fascinating to the point that it gets on our shelves, and the increase in costs and how that's going to continue to be impacted by these overly aggressive actions that are keeping people from work because they're afraid, and how it's going to hit everybody's pocketbook along the food chain.
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you even saw that from President Trump, where some of the business leaders came to him from the hotel industry, from the agricultural industry. And so he suggested that he might put a pause on some of the ICE raids, but of course he didn't, because he unfortunately, I don't know if I can say this, is a pathological liar. And so he told us there was going to be a pause, but also we know that Stephen Miller is the one pulling the rein, really in charge of everything that's going on, especially with ICE. And it brings me so much sadness. Part of why I also chose Thai iced tea today, because one of our member organizations, Thai Community Development Center, has really been on the forefront. And you talk about workers in so many different industries, and Thai CDC has been there to help those who've been picked up by ICE, trying to also protect the folks who are trying to just make a living, send their kids to school. And so for us at AAPI Equity Alliance, we have 50 members who are just like that. And so I just want to thank them for all of their work to ensure that our communities are safe.
I agree. Nana, I had a conversation last weekend at an event with a service provider who talked about knowing of a home where there were 30 Haitian immigrants scared to death, where she's taking food and they're telling her, even, be careful, they're watching us when you come to just, a kind of fear that literally took my breath away, just hearing her recount what her experience has been trying to get people in America in 2025 access to food. And with the policies, as Manju just talked about, one day he's going to change his mind and provide relief for one economic area. Let's be clear, an economic area. Then the next day it doesn't happen. What do you think, given all the daily changing policies, is the most important thing you want our immigrant brothers and sisters to know about their rights?
So I actually want everyone to know this about their rights, right? And so
I agree.
right? When you're looking at BAJI, we fight for the rights of Black migrants and African Americans by advancing racial justice and immigrant rights. Why? Because as Black immigrants, we are Black people, and how we're impacted by this immigration enforcement, this immigration system generally, is going to be different, right, than how other people are impacted. And we're going to be disproportionately harmed. It may not have the same numbers, but in terms of the percentage of our people who are harmed by these policies, it's going to be greater, and it's going to be invisibilized, because we know the 30 Haitians you're talking about, ain't nobody talking about that, right? There's not the video of us being grabbed in immigration court. There's not the video of us being grabbed at our check-ins. There's not the video of us being afraid, like at these, think about the restaurants in LA, think about the hair braiding places, think about so many other businesses. When you think about Black LA, you cannot think about Black LA without thinking about Black people born outside this country, or Black people like myself born to people who are born outside this country, right? Yeah. We have the most Belizeans outside of Belize. We have a lot of Haitians. We have folks from Ethiopia. We got a little Ethiopia. You know what I mean? We have folks from Cameroon. We have folks from the Congo. We have folks from Ghana, Nigeria. Obviously, we have people from all over the Black world who are here in Los Angeles, part of the tapestry of Los Angeles, from Earl's Grill to the Marathon, right? Like just everywhere that you can find Black people were there. And the fear means that people are isolating themselves.
Yes.
That people are pulling themselves away from the community.
Yes.
And that it's being done because it's invisibilized. Maybe the kind of support that you would see in other places is not happening. So I think what's important for people to understand is that what we see now is the tip of the spear for the police state you talked about earlier. Yeah. They are practicing right now.
They're coming for all of us. They're coming for all of us.
So we all have to know that we have a right to remain silent, right? And to say, we have 4 freedom mantras at BAJI. Am I free to leave? Can I get away from you? Because there's an assumption we make that we have to go with these people. We don't even know who these people are, Supervisor Mitchell. We have no idea. So that's one. Am I free to leave? I don't want to talk to you. We have a right to remain silent. So that's the second freedom mantra. I don't want to talk to you. The third freedom mantra is I want my attorney. Whether you have an attorney or not, you have a right to an attorney, right? Regardless of your status, from undocumented to citizen. And I do not consent. You have a right not to have these folks into your house, even if they have something that looks like a warrant from a judge. At the point that these are pathological liars, I wouldn't trust that warrant that it was actually signed by a judge, because it's handed to me by some masked people that are not even identifying themselves. And so we need to know. We can ask if we're free to leave. We can say, I don't want to talk to you. I want my attorney, and I do not consent. And that we don't need to sign anything. And that should be something all of us have. And then lastly, quickly, that plan you talked about. We all need a plan. Mm-hmm. You need a plan if you're an immigrant doing this work. We saw that one of our sisters with Central CSO was literally ambushed by FBI. They basically threw a warrant at her and took her phone, right? We know that people are being disappeared right from work. Their cars, their tools, their everything just being left there with no, recourse. So all of us, they are grabbing U.S. citizens, including Black U.S. citizens, have been grabbed and on their way to being deported. And as we see from the Supreme Court, anywhere in the world. So we all have to know, not a Gyamfi, when I'm on a walk, I got to let someone know I'm on a walk. And I've got to have a system for what happens if you don't hear me after 2 hours, because I don't walk that long. What happens if you don't hear from me, so that we can make sure that our people are protected and that we're protecting each other. Don't let them disappear me, and I won't let them disappear you.
Ooh, thank you. We have put the 4 mantras on the bottom. I wrote them down myself and going to commit them to memory. Don't let them disappear us. You mentioned Little Ethiopia. I represent Little Ethiopia. I have my entire elected career. And my sister there,
Nikki.
We had Nikki.
Yes.
Nick and I had a conversation in January, shortly after the election, where Nikki had received calls from LAUSD asking for help and for help with translation, because kids were already coming to school telling their teachers, I may not be back to class. My parents are afraid. And so many of the communities you both represent and the organizations that you represent have been at the forefront, knowing this day was coming, but none of us could have imagined it would be quite like this. Manju, from your perspective, does your organization have 4 similar mantras, or what know your rights elements are you all putting out there consistently?
I love what Nana shared, and I think it's so succinct and just so perfect. I mean, ours are essentially the same, right? Because we want everyone to, know that they can remain silent, that they ask for an attorney. And, I completely agree with what she said too about trusting these documents, right? Because, and I think Supervisor, you've heard, we're hearing now that they're bounty hunters.
Yes.
They're not only masked, not only not carrying ID, we see them changing license plates or not having license plates. We have even heard in some cases where if you pay off the bounty hunter, they will leave you alone.
This has become the real wild, wild west.
It really
they picked up recently in the South Bay, who, when they looked in his car, had a car full of passports, where he has collected passports from people and hasn't returned them.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
I wish I could say no, but we are living it all together. The important thing for me of having you both on today was to really talk about solidarity. And as you said, Nana, to cast a broader kind of net or view over the communities that are being impacted. Our Latino community and communities across African and Asian diasporas are being disproportionately impacted. I tell people this is about race. I mean, this is racism through and through, because I'm not seeing Canadian or European immigrants being absconded away with. We're just not. And this notion of a crisis in LA, it's a manufactured crisis. He made it up. As the mayor of LA so eloquently said, we're talking about a 1-2 square block area of a city and county the size of LA. And so solidarity, from my perspective, is something we struggle with, quite frankly. We're gonna keep it real as we sip our tea. We know.
Let me take a sip real fast.
Yeah, take a sip. We know that cross-racial solidarity is something we often struggle with. And as I said this morning in Culver City, we can't let them separate us, because if so, they win. And we can't let them win. So have either of you seen examples of solidarity that I think we can learn from, particularly in this time of crisis, and hopefully help nourish and further along?
Absolutely. I can say that, in so many different ways, we've seen that solidarity. We've seen the cards, Know Your Rights cards, made in all the different languages. And we need to get more of those out there, because in our communities, we have 15 languages that are just at the top, right? I mean, there's so many more, but that our communities speak: Chinese, Korean, Hindi, Khmer, Thai, Japanese. I mean, so many, right? So that's a place for solidarity, is making sure they're not just in English and Spanish, but also languages that so many of the rest of us speak. We have been at so many rallies, Supervisor. We were at the prayer vigil that LA Voice did. We were at different things. We had our own press conference actually on Thursday, and Jonathan from your staff was there. We were very excited to have him to say that, yes, we know that, the Latino community has borne the brunt of this, but we also have been impacted, and we shared stories of people in our community, especially, I have to say, there's a phenomenon of the brown Asian, right? People like me who are South Asian, people who are Filipino and Vietnamese. and we look like our Latino brothers and sisters. And there was a great piece in the LA Times about Scared to be Brown. And I'm an immigrant myself. I came with my parents when I was 2 years old. I'm a naturalized citizen, but they've just very easily could take me. I want to say the one last thing, which is the Rapid Response Network, where we've seen solidarity, so many different groups that are part of that. And if it's okay to just share the number with our community members, 888-624-4752, 888-624-4752. So if a family member has been taken, if you hear about an ICE raid, let us know at that number. And it gets out to so many of our different communities.
This morning at the Culver City rally, they talked about the rapid response networks on IG and gave the IG post as well. And so as we think about our plan, making sure we program that number in our phones, because, if you don't have a plan and you're in shock, what do? So program the number in your phones and, record what we see. These have become our most powerful tools. Sometimes law enforcement questions whether or not you can record, but, I remember being in the legislature when I want to say Insurance Commissioner now, Ricardo Lara, carried the bill allowing us to record events even when police are involved. And so thank you for the number. We've got it on the ticker tape across the bottom. Nana, tell me what you've seen about solidarity and what can we do to maintain it? We have these starts and stops, right, where something happens. George Floyd, mass communities came together. Then we retreat. ICE is taking us over. We're coming together. What examples of solidarity are you seeing? And how do we, continue to hold power as a collective?
So, I think that one part of what we see has been with the support of getting the information we have out. So BAJI has Know Your Rights cards that are not just in languages like French and Haitian Creole, Amharic, Tigrinya, Arabic, but also are like culturally competent, right? We love the red cards. We ain't mad at the red cards. ILRC and all of them are our friends. But there is a way that we talk to each other that is different than sort of the standard card you can stick in your pocket, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're trying, we have that, and people can go to our website at baji.org and access that, as well as accessing information on how to make an emergency plan. And solidarity has been people having the humility to say, I get that. And I'm going to share actually what you all and other Black immigrant organizations have put together, as opposed to telling us, well, no, we don't need that because we got red cards. And it's like, okay, we're trying to tell you something here about how you talk with our community, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've seen that particularly where we already are doing this work with people on the ground. It's important. I have a friend that says you play how you practice. For those of us sports, we understand that, right? You're not going to suddenly get out there, whether it be a field, whether it be a pitch, whether it be a capoeira Angola roda, and just do spectacular things. That's not how it's going to happen. You're going to work as a team because you practice as a team. You're going to be able to do things together because you've done it in the past. Mm-hmm. And that's where we've seen the solidarity the most, whether it's been with African-American leaders who already were understanding that Black immigrants are a part of the Black community, whether it's with our non-Black Latino community members who already were working with us on abolition, were already working with us on how do we take care of our communities, for example, as a result of the pandemic, right? So we were already doing things together. Our Asian colleagues who are helping us on the issue of criminalization, because Southeast Asians are very criminalized, right? Yes. And on the issue of language access, as well as like folks like my sister Odelia with Cielo on language. So we were already working with people. So now it's like, okay, CLUE, CLUE, right? The Clergy and Labor United, right? It's like, how do we create a Black flank to what you're already doing with the courts? so that you're doing a training and you're including us in the training. So there, how does that happen? The Rapid Response Network, you actually ain't clocking Leimert Park. Let's be real. You're not necessarily clocking parts of Inglewood and other places where you don't think that there are brown Latinos. So how do we make sure that there's some expansion? And we're having real conversations about doing that. So some of that solidarity work has been in the humility that people have been willing to have, the hard conversations that people have been willing to have. BAJI exists because of the anti-Blackness in the immigrant rights movement. Let's be very clear about that.
Right. That's right.
Hard conversations about how we're not going to leap over African Americans into some white land of milk and honey, that we are actually going to have to respect the people that built this country so our parents would even want to come here, right? Or so that we would even want to come here. We got to talk about that. And then how do we, who have already been working together, keep working together, which is how you maintain, as you were describing, Supervisor Mitchell. That's how it becomes not a start and stop, because it's not about, showing up to events. It's about building community with one another.
It absolutely is. Couple things. We were going to open it up for a question. So if you have a question, those who are watching live, feel free to post it, and staff will drop your questions in the comments. There it is. I agree with you in terms of the rallies. I have a real internal tug of war, about the rallies. Yes, it's important to show solidarity. Yes, it's important to create a space for everyone to show up. But as I said today in Culver City, what else are we going to do? What plan are you making as you're here at the rally? We are all touched emotionally. We are looking at his wife. They had his Pilates cart that was left abandoned there. There's no way you could have been in that space and not felt something. I need you to take those feelings and go do something with it. So I am so pleased to hear from both of you how these conversations are continuing. And you talk about cultural competence. I had to raise my hand and confess. I had immigrants' rights attorneys come in to do a training for my staff. And they talked about a judicial warrant. And I said, I don't know that I've ever seen a judicial warrant. I would know if something they made up on their laptop in the car and printed was real or not. And so for myself, having to educate myself to actually see a real judicial warrant, so I would have a sense of what one even looks like. It's little things like that in terms of being ready, being competent, and being prepared to say, am I free to leave? I don't want to talk to you. I want my attorney, and I do not consent. I'm ready. Any questions, Lene, that came up in comments, or if not, I'm just going to ask them both to leave us with some closing remarks. All right, we see some thanks. Thank you, Jasmine. As the comments populate, let me just ask you for just some final remarks. First of all, let me thank you for carving out your time on a Sunday. We try to keep this very brief so people, we know the attention span of social media. We want people to click it, learn something, and keep it moving. But I appreciate you carving out time on your Sunday evening to help me spread important fact-based information to Angelenos. So Manju, let me start with you.
Well, what I want to say and what I want people to know is our communities are here for you. What we are seeing is just downright fascism, right? Mm-hmm. We've got to call it for what it is. It's authoritarianism. Too many people in our country think that we're exceptional and that this would never happen. I actually had a conversation with a Stanford government professor in the fall. And I said, I'm very scared after the election. And he said, oh, no, this will never happen. That won't happen here. To his credit, February of this year, he said, you were right. This has happened. And so I think we need everybody to know and to be able to see and identify it, because it's the first step in taking action, right? We need more elected officials like Supervisor Mitchell to be there to guard and protect our rights. And I'm so grateful actually that I live in California where you all are here. We have 8 bills to help protect us in the legislature where you were before. So I just want people to know that, yes, we have your backs. We're fighting. We're not going to be able to preserve and protect everything. And unfortunately, we cannot even, I'm sad to say, protect everyone, but
No.
we are going to try our very, very hardest. And we've got to fight on all fronts. So I just want to thank you. It's such an honor for me to be with both of you. You guys are amazing. And that actually is what gives me a little bit of hope right now, is because there are folks like both you, Nana, and the supervisor who are doing fantastic work. And I think here for our communities in whatever way we can be.
Thank you, Manju. The feeling is absolutely mutual. Nana.
So yes, thank you so very much. Thank you for having me on today. What I think is important for people to understand and to think about is that we are the ones that are going to keep ourselves safe.
That's right.
We are the ones that we're going to have to fight to make sure that we're not falling into a lull, that we're not feeling exceptional, like this is not going to happen to me. This is not going to happen to me. Black folks, you in danger, girl. Telling you now, they're going after birthright citizenship. They want to make it so they can just send you to any place all over the world, regardless of whether you are a citizen or not a citizen. They want to make it so that we don't even think that we should have a right to a hearing. They want to, and have due process. They want us to think that there's nothing that we can do, that we are totally lost. And I'm thinking about a mentor, Ross, also known as Harriet Tubman, and that freedom tea that you're drinking, and how she and other folks, Black folks who included people that had just gotten there not long ago, and people that had been there for generations, who stood up and said no, who stood up and said, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. And so we have to do that. We must engage in protecting each other, in resisting what we see happening, and in building what we want to see. We cannot give up on the project.
Thank you for quoting Sweet Honey in the Rock. You could not be more accurate. And none of us are free until all of us are free. And, my new mantra is they're coming for all of us. It is so clear to me. And I want to make sure it's clear to everyone. And when we have the DEI conversation in the context of the elected spaces I serve, from the Board of Supervisors to Metro to AQMD, all of these places I serve, that have begun to do meaningful, measurable work in the DEI sphere. My point in those spaces is, where do we draw the line? Where do we say enough is enough? Because they are coming for all of us. And it's so many recent history examples where we see it happening. And as I've said to my staff recently, particularly the young ones, I've got some summer interns, I'm like, you are living an interesting point in history. And we have to decide how we choose to show up in this moment in history. And when we are telling the stories to our grandchildren or great-grandchildren, and they say, well, what did you do? You need to be really clear about how you're going to show up for our family, friends, and neighbors, and for ourselves. Because this is like the history books. This is like what we've studied. And yet we're living it. I couldn't agree with both of you more. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for both of you for carving out time. I want you both to stay safe. And I look forward to sharing space with you both again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Again, wanted to thank both of them for joining us for this month's Sipping My Tea. Want to make sure that you all stay connected with organizations like theirs and others, and that you know your rights. You have access to Know Your Rights resources and other supportive services. We're going to put up on the screen the county services. So please be sure to visit the LA County Office of Immigrant Affairs. And there's the website. But I think, like both of them said, we all said, have a plan. Put the Rapid Response Network number in your phone. Know the 4 tenets of BAJI. Have red cards in multiple languages. and fundamentally know our own rights. I was in the reparations bookstore today here in the 2nd District, and at the cashier, they had little copies of the Constitution of the United States of America. I thought, how many people own this book and how many should? This is a time when our rights are being challenged and questioned, and they will be disappeared if we don't make a commitment to fight for them. Thank you again for joining us for this month's Sipping My Tea. Have a great week and please stay safe. We'll see you in this space next month.